Hey gang, great to see you. Thanks for being here or watching on the replay or live. I'm Casey Art from Go the Distance Coaching, and today I want to talk a little bit about pre-planning how you're going to write a really awesome race report for your next race. So guaranteed you guys have got some race that you're really looking forward to this year. You may have already raced a race here in Austin. A lot of us had the rookie try. We've had a couple of other long course races that have already happened. And so you might be thinking about, I wrote this race report and my coach wants me to write a race report, or I've seen other people write a race report and what am I supposed to put in there? And I want to talk to you kind of in advance of even racing the race where you might write this race report and how to guarantee that what you're going to write in there is going to be awesome, okay? So when you're thinking about a race report, you want to put in a lot of qualitative things. How did you feel? What was your pre-race ritual? How well did you stick to your nutrition plan? Did anything go wrong? GI distress, things like that. There's a lot that goes on in a morning. There's a lot of things that you might feel. There's a lot of things that might go great. There could be, you dropped a chain. It could be just like unexpected things. Those all need to go in there because they're going to help your coach and you later on when you're looking back at your data, remember all the details that were around the day that you've got there. So if you've got your watch on and maybe one of the miles on your bike was really slow, in a year or two, you might not remember why that was the case. So if you write down, yeah, that was where I dropped my chain and I had to get off and put it back on. Those are great things to have in a race report. But I want to talk a little bit about both the numbers side of the race report and the mental side of the race itself, that it's going to help you to have a race that you're really excited to analyze. And if you've already had a race, these are the things that you might be looking for. So on the numbers side, if you had certain paces that you were looking for, if you had certain heart rates you were aiming for, if you, for instance, thought that you did a great job on the swim, but man, there were a ton of people passing you on the bike, even though you felt like you did a good job for yourself, you might be wondering, what went wrong with my training, or how can I change things for my next race? And it's really important to understand before you get to the race where you're really at. So let's say, like I used to do back in the day, I would race basically the same races every year. And I did essentially the same training year after year. And so I'd get really similar results in all those races because my training was really similar. So if I went into, say, the same flat Olympics distance race and my training had been a little different, let's say I had a family problem or, I'd had a lot of travel for work and I didn't get those same sessions in, if I went into that race thinking, well, I can race the same way, and I hadn't had the same number of long rides, maybe I skipped my trainer session a number of times in a row, I didn't have quite the same run volume, I kind of got lazy and I only swam once a week. It's realistic to think that you're probably not going to have the same race results that year. So, you have to be really honest with yourself about what you've done in your training when you're thinking about, well, what do I want to plan to do at this race? What can I really do? Where is my endurance really? Where's my muscular endurance really? Did I prepare for the terrain, the hills, the heat, so that I know that whatever the weather throws at me, or, I know these hills really well, maybe I've ridden them or run them before, I'm gonna be prepared. If you've done all those things, great. If you haven't, then maybe you need to set your sights a little bit lower on what you're gonna be able to achieve. And then when you get to the race report, you don't want to be frustrated with yourself because you didn't achieve your dream. Maybe in your head you run 7 30-minute miles, but nothing in your training supports your being able to do that for a 5K or a 10K getting off the bike. If you come to your race report and you're thinking, man, why didn't I run 7.5s? Don't be mad at yourself for your race execution. Your training didn't really support that. So if your training supported 7.5s and you ran 9s, yeah, you really want to get down dirty and really figure out what you did that caused your run to be so much slower than you expected. So you want to have realistic expectations about what you can achieve, and so it's really this 4-step process. Where it was your training, base your pre-race expectations and your planning based on the training that you actually did, not the training that you wish you would have done. Then you got to execute that plan, and then the race report at the end is where you go and you analyze, did you actually execute the plan and how do you need to change the training going forward into your next race to support a better performance. So let's say that you had a race already that was maybe not quite what you expected it to be, and you want to figure out, okay, what can I do with my training now so I set up a better pre-race plan, I execute better, and when I get to my race report, I'm actually really psyched to look at this. So I want to give you 2 tips for physically how to prepare and 2 tips for how to mentally prepare or execute so that you can have that race that you're really proud of. So on the physical side, we can talk about just plain old endurance. So if you're having trouble getting sessions in or you're preparing for a really long event, just getting the right endurance can be a struggle. So a general rule of thumb that I use, this is tip number 1 for the physical side, is you want to be able to cover 100% to 125% of your leg length if you're doing sprint, or all the way up to 70.3 within one workout. And if you're doing sprints, this might be every time you do a workout. For example, all of your runs might be 4 miles long or longer. So you're always running more than 3 miles. For your bike ride, your long rides, are not going to be just 12. They might be 16. They honestly might be 25 or 30 if you're doing sprint. And you're going to want to be able to do a little bit more than your race distance because, well, when you race, you want to race fast. You don't just want to cover the distance, you want to race the distance. So you need to have endurance that's equal to at least the race distance and probably more. And number 2, you want to use some interval training to help you have muscular endurance that's going to support the level of effort that you want to put in on each of those legs. So swimming, my personal favorite, if you're swimming anything less than an Ironman, you want to be training at your critical swim speed. We talked about this in an earlier video using a set of like 6 200s to kind of get introduced to this idea. So you're going to be training close to your lactate threshold with a main set that's equal to or maybe even longer than your race distance, especially if you're doing sprint, so that you can swim hard and you can swim well for at least your race distance, possibly more, chunked up into 100s, 200s, 300s, with a rest that's no more than, say, 15 to 30 seconds, depending on how long the interval is. If you can keep that up in the pool, you can really, kind of torture yourself in the pool and have a really tough swim, then you're going to be able to really perform at your race at close to that level. So maybe you're going to look for, between 3 and 10 seconds per 100 slower than that critical swim speed pace that you use, depending on the distance of your event. So if it was a 70.3, maybe even slower, maybe if it was a sprint, pretty close to that critical swim speed pace, taking into account, of course, how your navigation goes and what kind of waves you had to deal with. All right, so endurance, muscular endurance to support the race that you're doing. Now, if you're talking about, say, I'm going to take Olympic distance as kind of an easy example. If you're training for a 10K run leg, it's not the same as running an open 10K. You might actually run more close to your half marathon pace. So in addition to doing some training close to your lactate threshold, just because training there is going to have really great training effect on you, you want to really hone in on what pace can I do if I was going to do a half marathon. So really looking more at those kind of tempo intervals, maybe a little bit slower, a little bit longer. What could I really do for those? And that's going to be closer to your race pace on that run leg. Same for the bike. You're not going to be able to race that 40K the same as somebody who's just racing a 40K bike leg. You've got to save something for the run. So you're going to need to take it down a notch. You're not going to execute right at your FTP, for example, not right at your lactate threshold. You need to bump it down a notch or so. And that's going to be a better place for you to race, and you need to train there a lot. And if you're able to train for 35 minutes, 40 minutes, 45 minutes in that tempo range in chunks, again maybe 15 or 20 minutes long, then you're going to be able to sustain that on race day, and it's going to give you a better performance. Hey Sharon, thank you so much for watching, and congratulations on a really great Olympic try recently. So for physical, you want number 1, just bare endurance, and then 2, muscular endurance. So let's say you did all the right training, you got to race day, and there was something, okay, nutrition can be an issue. I'll give you that. But maybe there was something that caused you to not execute the way that you wanted to, and it could be something in your head. So I want to talk a little bit about the mental side of living up to your potential when you're out there on the race course. Number one is something that Nate Last of Mental Grit Training has taught me, which is to think of your thoughts in terms of a stoplight. So you've got red thoughts, yellow thoughts, green thoughts. You want to have mostly green. These are the ones where you're telling yourself, man, you're doing great, this is going great, you're awesome, you are strong. All those really like positive things that you can say to yourself as you're racing. Even if you feel terrible, you're really focusing on what you're doing right. What you don't want to be saying to yourself is things like, you suck, that was the worst swim ever, you might as well just quit. You had those thoughts probably in your training and maybe even in your racing, which is not a great place to have them. So if you can step those red thoughts where you're really getting on your own case and step it down to at least yellow. Yellow is neutral. That's just, the sky is blue. I can feel my legs going in circles. There's a guy in front of me and his kid is purple. I mean, just really neutral. There's nothing particularly positive, nothing particularly negative. It's just an observation. If you can at least take your thoughts there from, this is the most uncomfortable saddle I've ever sat on, I want to get off right now, that's going to help your racing a lot. So just putting your mind into that at least yellow or into the green region is going to help you out. And one more mental thing is that, you know, a lot of us, we've got these Garmin watches, we've got all this special stuff, you might have spent a whole bunch of money on a power meter, you get really caught up in the numbers, but if you stop listening to your body, you might put yourself in a weird place, both in your training and your racing. So if you're trying to aim for certain watts or certain heart rate or certain pace on a day when your body is tired or when you haven't really got those things dialed in yet, and you feel like, wow, you know, I was supposed to do 4 times 6 of these intervals on my trainer, but one of them is killing me. I just got to double down and I got to make sure I just knock out all 4 of those. No, that's not the way to do it. You want to bring it to the perceived exertion that you should have for that workout. Because you need to find something that's sustainable for you, and maybe today is different from 2 days from now, that's fine. You're gonna have to listen to your body. You really need to be listening to your body when you're racing, because sometimes you gotta go to plan B. Maybe your nutrition's not working out, maybe the wattage or the heart rate or the pace that you thought you could do is just not working, and you can't get hung up on those numbers. You have to be able to know what kind of perceived exertion you're supposed to have relative to, you know, on the bike, it's got to be just a little bit lower than maybe you think it is, especially as you're starting out, especially that first mile of the run. It's got to be a little bit pulled back. Sometimes the numbers can help you get there, but, you know, sometimes they're just getting in the way. So if you know how to listen to your body, you know what it's telling you, and you're racing within yourself, you're training at a level that's sustainable so that when you're doing an interval set, it's more about having each one of those intervals come out even than having them hit a certain number. You need to be able to pace yourself. Don't worry about what that pace is. Just be even paced. Be able to do a negative split when you want to, but don't worry about the numbers all the time. All right? So you got to get out of your own head. You got to get out of the numbers sometime and just listen. Just take a head to toe analysis. What's going on, whether that's in training or racing, and just be able to really pay attention to your body. Okay, so I hope that's helpful. If you do these 4 things in your training, you're talking to yourself in a positive way, you're in tune with your body, you've got your endurance under control with your training, you're working on your muscular endurance, and you're really understanding where that is, you're going to be able to create a pre-race plan that makes sense for where you are in that moment. You're going to be able to race with positive thoughts, and you're going to be able to get to that race result at the end that you can be happy with. So it doesn't matter if 100 people passed you on the bike. If you perform to your potential, that's exactly where you needed to be that day. All right, so I hope that was helpful. If you need help with some of these skills, either with the training part or the mental part, I hope that you will shoot me a note. I would love to help you out with that and just see where you are, and we can work on a solution for you. All right, so thanks so much for watching, and tune in next week. I'll be right back here around 1 o'clock on Wednesday, and thank you so much for watching.